Yeah, so number two is income protection. So a few things around income protection, and for those of you who maybe don't know what income protection is, income protection is a policy that you have in place that, should you be off work with sickness, injury, that, the policy then helps cover, a large portion of your monthly pay to help ensure that you can pay any, debts, pay, your bills, pay your mortgage, put food on the table. It's in well, I think the majority of cases, it is the one that is most claimed. Statistically, it is the one that is most claimed. If you were to take out, the standard three of, income protection, life insurance, critical illness, you're more likely to claim in your lifetime on an income protection policy. But yet, it's a one that people know probably one of the least about, and it's one of the least taken out policies, which is, really quite peculiar in that sense. Um, and I think one of the biggest reasons, which is one of the ones I want to discuss today, is when I speak to people and say, have you got income protection? If you're off work ill, and more often than not, the response is, I get sick pay from work. Now that usually comes in, a few different categories. People will think, or know, especially if they're working, a decent job, teachers, whatever else, they tend to get 6 month full pay. But then other jobs, people think they have 6 month full pay, and then a lot of people go into the category of they don't know what they have. So you ask them if they've got income protection, they say, yeah, I've got income protection, because I get paid off, my employer, but they don't even know what they've got, which is mental. So you know, firstly, if you think you get pay off your employer for sickness, go and find out. Go and find out how long you get. And then, have a conversation with somebody like myself, because, more often than not, people get, a shock. I had this with a client consultation a couple of weeks ago, and they actually, to be fair, had income protection in place, but start a new job. They then looked at their contract, thinking they had longer, and they had 3 months, which is far better than nothing. But no, half of what they actually thought that they had. So immediately, obviously, we had to then readjust, the defer period. So in terms of defer periods, what a deferment period means is that, it's how many sort of, time, I suppose, really, from when you're off work to when the policy will then kick in. So what we tend to do is, if you've got 3 months sick pay from work, we'll start the policy with a 3 month defer period, because we know that if you're off work for 3 months, your employer's going to pay and you've got nothing to worry about. If you're off beyond that, the policy will then kick in and then pay, for a period of time until you're then able to go back to work. So what that does is protect you, in all scenarios, but it also, what it does is make the policy cheaper. So when I speak to people who, get 6 months from work, great, but what happens, if you have, mental health problems, if you're involved, in an accident, a car crash, for example, and you have, injuries where you can't go back to work, for a long period of time, what happens if you go beyond that 6 month? Then what happens? How do you then pay the mortgage, the bills, and everything else that go with it? So that's why income protection is very important. So just because, it's not necessarily to be seen as a short-term fix, you have that from, employer potentially. But, we can start that later, and the later we start with deferment periods, the cheaper it makes it, because you're less likely to claim, because you get that 6 month. But if you are off beyond that 6 month and you're off for a year, for example, how are you going to survive? I think I've mentioned this before. Most people on average have 1 month, salary saved. So, if that's the case, and how do you then pay the bills for the next 5 months? Because the government aren't really going to give you anything towards that. So, it's a legitimate thing, and considering it's one of the most claimed out policies, or claimed on policies, sorry, then, it should be taken really quite serious by people. And then the other avenue really as well is self-employed people. And again, I know I've mentioned this, self-employed people, I'm self-employed. If, I'm involved in an accident, or, something where, I physically can't work, then my pay stops today. It stops today. I earn nothing from tomorrow. And, if I've got no savings or anything else, then how do I expect to pay the mortgage and the bills and look after my two kids and everything else? And the reality is, you can't. And what you have to then do is either try and force yourself to go back to work if you can, which can then, especially with things like mental health, make the problems a million times worse and lead you being off, either indefinitely or for far sustained periods than what you're currently being off. So you need to really consider, all avenues when it comes to income protection.